Now we discuss about the regulation of the urine formation, how the urine is formed. Auto-regulation of the renal reabsorption. It's a auto, means we don't want to dictate anything here. It's a automatically regulate. Blood comes out from the heart to the aorta, and then it will go into the renal arteries, and from the renal arteries it will enter into the kidney, and from the kidney, as we have discussed about the tubules, it will absorb and reabsorb and excrete. So in that way, the waste, which is urine, is formed and stored in urinary bladder, and then it is urinary bladder is filled, expelled, it will what comes out. So we have a urination and we go to the washroom. Solute diuresis, osmotic diuresis means when there is a concentration of the urine with electrolytes. Large amount of poorly reabsorbed solutes such as glucose, menthol, or urea, they are not fully reabsorbed. Osmotic diuresis means normal percent water restricted, normal percent mannitol infusion water restricted. They have changed the difference of that. Urine flow low, osmotic pressure is 1200, and urine flow high, urinary osmotic pressure is 4. Osmotic diuresis means there is a sodium which is entering into the tubule, and water also entering into the tubule. So sodium and water both enter into the tubule, and hypotonic saline is excreted out from the urine. Osmolytic glucose, mannitol, and urea is decreasing the osmotic pressure by excreting out from the body. Now we have a glomerular tubular balance, means in Bowman capsules, the vessels, how they balance. Concept: the constant fraction, about 65 to 70% of the filtered sodium and water are reabsorbed in the proximal tubule despite variation of the glomerular filtration rate. Means 65 to 70% is reabsorbed. What? Sodium and water back to the body, because body needs sodium and water. Sodium is very important for electrical impulses, action potential we call it. Sodium is important to maintain the blood pressure. Sodium is important to retain the water in the body. Importance to prevent overloading of the distal tubule segment when GFR increases. So this is also prevented when GFR, glomerular filtration rate, is increased. So reabsorption has to be decreased, but the distal tubule decreases. The excretion increases the reabsorption. Glomerular tubular balance mechanism. GFR increases independent of the glomerular plasma flow. The peritubular capillary collides, osmotic pressure increase, and the hydrostatic pressure decreases. Hydrostatic means water pressure. The reabsorption of water in the proximal tubule increases in this way. Now this whole mechanism is controlled by the nervous system, nervous regulation, innervation of the kidney. Kidney has got a nerve innervation. Renal nerves will enter into the kidney and give the sensation of stretch, pain, and other things. Nerve from the renal plexus, sympathetic nerve, enter kidney at the hilar. Hilus is the upper part of the kidney towards the cortex, so medulla. Innervate smooth muscles of the afferent and efferent arteriole. The renal artery which enter and the renal artery which leaves the kidney is known as afferent and efferent arteriole. Regulate blood pressure and distribution throughout the kidney. Effects: reduce the GPF and GFR through contracting the afferent and efferent artery. Alpha receptors are there, and they have the nerve innervation. Increase the sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. Beta receptors are present in the proximal tubule. Alpha receptors are present at the afferent and efferent artery. Increase the release of the renin. Beta receptors means renin is one of the chemical which is released from the kidney and causes a vasoconstriction. Hormonal regulation is also there. Antidiuretic ADH, as we have discussed previously, retention of water is controlled by the ADH. Antidiuretic hormone release is controlled by the decrease in the blood pressure, increase in the blood pressure, increase in the extracellular fluid, osmolality. These three phenomena controlled by the ADF, antidiuretic hormone. Secretion of ADH, stimulus is there from the pituitary gland, post-pituitary gland, posterior pituitary gland, urge to drink. It causes you to take more water, and that way antidiuretic hormone is released, and with the cyclic AMP energy packet, it will causes urge for water to take more water. And antidiuretic hormone, since it reduces the diuresis, retains the water in the body. Aldosterone is another hormone. Sodium balance is controlled by the aldosterone. Adrenal gland, we call it suprarenal gland, as shown in this figure. A gland is present at the top of the kidney, which is known as suprarenal gland or adrenal gland. Aldosterone, steroid hormone by nature, synthesized in adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex means the outer layer of the kidney. This outer layer of the kidney, this one, this is cortex, and this is medulla. Causes reabsorption of sodium and water, and in DTZ and CD also potassium secretion. Distal convoluted tubule and convoluted duct. Effect of the aldosterone to make the kidney retain sodium and water reabsorption and potassium secretion, acting on the principal cell of the cortical collecting duct, stimulating sodium, potassium, ATPase pump, increase sodium permeability of the lumen side of the membrane. This is a complete phenomena is given in this picture. Tube cells means renal tubules, basal membrane, aldosterone receptors, apical membrane, filtrates, lumen of the nephron, counter transport, increase of the synthesis of the transport protein, sodium, then hydrogen, then ADP is required. ATP is required for the transfer of sodium or potassium from one side of the cell to another side of the cell. Increase aldosterone secretion, active transport take place, aldosterone working on sodium. Then if you come from the top, renin from the kidney is released, angiotensin from the liver, and angiotensin is converted into angiotensin 1, then angiotensin 2, which is a vasoconstrictor. Increases the potassium release and at the adrenal cortex. And there is an enzyme which converts 1 to 2 is known as angiotensin converting enzyme. ACE we call it. This is whole phenomenon given in this figure. Renin angiotensin aldosterone system is very important because this system controls the blood pressure, fall in the sodium chloride, extracellular fluid volume, arterial pressure. Juxtaglomerulus apparatus from the kidney release the renin, and renin is combined with the angiotensinogen, which is released from the parenchymal cells of the liver, and that would converge into angiotensin 1. Then, in the presence of an enzyme, ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme, angiotensin 2. Then angiotensin 2 act on adrenal cortex. Increased sodium reabsorption is helped to correct it. Aldosterone also play a role. Then angiotensin 3 is also acting on the adrenal cortex. And angiotensin is an enzyme released from the lungs. Regulation of the renin secretion, renin mechanism, how it will secrete from the kidney, tension of the afferent arteriole. The blood which is coming into the kidney, if it is more, there is a stretch on the receptors, medulla densa, content of the sodium ion in the distal convoluted tubule, nervous mechanism, sympathetic nerve is there, hormonal mechanism, epinephrine, norepinephrine, prostaglandin 1, 2, and prostaglandin E1 and I1. Then arterial neurotic peptides, A and P we call it, released by the atrium in response to the atrial stretch due to the increased blood pressure. When there is an accumulation of the blood in the atrium, left and right, the walls stretch out. When it is stretched due to the presence of excess quantity of blood, then it causes, due to increase in the blood volume, promotes increased sodium excretion. This causes increase of the sodium excretion from the body and water excretion, diuresis in urine by inhibiting sodium and water reabsorption and emitting antidiuretic secretion. It will decrease the antidiuretic means diuresis, which hormone is reducing the excretion, will be inhibited, which is ADH. Micturition means urination. Once urine enters the renal pelvis, it flows through the ureter and enters the bladder where urine is stored. Micturition is the process of emptying the urinary bladder. Two processes are involved. The bladder filled progressively until the tension in its wall rises above a threshold level, and then a nervous reflex called the micturition reflex occurs that empties the bladder. The micturition reflexes is an autonomic spinal cord reflex. However, it can be inhibited or facilitated by center in the brain and cerebral cortex. So it is controlled from two places, one from the spinal cord and one from your cerebral cortex. Urine micturition is given over here, how the urine comes into the urinary bladder. Sacral segment of the spinal cord is there, and above the spinal cord is a medulla oblongata which has a pons, and this center is in the pons. It will come and affect on the parasympathetic fiber of the pelvic nerve, sensory and motor, and parasympathetic ganglion in bladder wall, urinary bladder wall, motor fiber to detrus muscles, which muscles is present at the urinary bladder, internal urethral sphincter involuntary. This sphincter is control the release of the urine from the urinary bladder. Then it will through the urethra, it will come to the external urethral sphincter voluntarily. When you want, you can. When you feel desire, you just go to the washroom and this urine will comes out. The somatic motor fiber of the pudendal nerve. A pudendal nerve is given in this area which provides to the sex organ as well as to the urinary bladder innervation. Now, if you see from the top to the bottom, this is all controlled by the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex, and then it will come to the pons, which is a part of the brainstem, and then sacral region of the spinal cord means at the back, at the lower side, there is a sacral region means there is a sacral bone, and on the bone there is a bunch of plexus of the nerve, which is known as sacral plexus. From there, the nerve supply will go to the ureter, urinary bladder, and external urethral sphincter. AP generated by the stretch receptor, reflexes are generated. AP. Anterior-posterior generated by the stretch receptor, reflexes are generated that stimulate the smooth muscles lining bladder, relax internal urethral sphincter, IUS, stretch receptors also send AP to pons. If it is okay to urinate, AP from the pons excites muscles of the bladder and relax IUS, internal urethral sphincter, relax external urethral sphincter. If not okay, AP from the pons keeps external urethral sphincters contracted. So the nerve which is coming from the pons is controlling changes with aging, includes decline in the number of the functional nephrons, reduced GFR, reduced sensitivity to the ADH in old age, problem with the maturation, reflexes, so sometimes incontinence of the urine take place. So we have here discussed the main nervous regulation of the kidney, and we have discussed about what are the innervations are there, how the GFR or GPF work, what are the receptors, where are the receptors present, afferent artery and arterios alpha receptor, tubules beta receptors, and kidney has got beta receptors through which it secretes renin. Then we talk about the hormonal regulation. Antidiuretic hormone has got a role, and this role is depend on your body condition. If there is a decrease in blood pressure, then ADH will be comes in action and retain water and sodium and increase the volume of the blood. If there is a decrease in the blood pressure, then it will retain the water and sodium and increase the blood pressure. If there is an increase in extracellular fluid osmolality, then antidiuretic will decrease its function and causes release of the sodium and water. Then we have shown you over here that there is a secretion of antidiuretic hormone from the posterior lobe of the pituitary urge to drink. This causes thirst, प्यास जिसे कहते हैं, प्यास लगती है, और एडीएच वहां से रिलीज होता है एंटीडायरेटिक हार्मोन. फिर सेकंड हार्मोन हमारा जो है वो अल्डोस्टेरोन है, जो इसके ऊपर इफेक्ट कर रहा है सुप्रारीनल ग्लैंड के ऊपर जाके एड्रिनल ग्लैंड के ऊपर, और स्टेरॉइड इन नेचर होता है, सिंथेसाइज एड्रिनल कॉर्टेक्स बनाता है इसको एल्डोस्टेरोन को, और कॉज क्या करता है, रीअब्जॉर्प्शन, सोडियम को वापस लेता है, वाटर वापस लेता है, और कहाँ लेता है, डिस्टल कॉन्वोल्यूटेड ट्यूब्यूल और कॉन्वोल्यूटेड ट्यूब्यूल के जगह पे सोडियम की सिक्रेशन में भी ये हेल्प करता है. ये सारा हमने डिस्कस किया. उसके बाद हमने आपको बताया कि क्या इसका प्रोसेस है, ये सारी चीज़ें मैप में आपको नजर आ गई. Then we talk about the renin angiotensin phenomena. This phenomenon is very important to control the blood pressure. Okay, so renin is released from the kidney, angiotensinogen is released from the liver. They both combine and converted into angiotensin 1, and angiotensin 1 converted to angiotensin 2 in the presence of AC, ACR and angiotensin releasing enzyme ACE and convert into angiotensin 2, and that causes a vasoconstriction, and then it will increase sodium and water reabsorption. So this regulation we have discussed. Then we talk about the atrial neuritic peptides. Some proteins are present and how it will release when there is a stretch in the atrium, upper atrium, left and right. And this causes increased sodium excretion, natriuresis we call it, and excretion, water excretion, diuresis we call it, inhibiting sodium and water reabsorption, inhibiting ADH. Then we talk about the maturation, means urination, how the urine comes out. When there is the bladder is filled, it will stretch, and then there is a nerve reflexes from the spinal cord and cerebral cortex, both sides, and it causes release of the urine from the urine bladder into the urethra, and then it will comes out of the body. This is whole phenomena is given over here. Then we talk about from the cerebral cortex we came up to the external urethral sphincter. Then we talk about how the pons control the whole internal and external urethral sphincters. And we have also mentioned about the changing with the age. When the person becomes old, there is a reduction in the GFR, glomerular filtration rate, ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and maturation reflexes. So this is all about this chapter. Then we start in next class, reproductive system.